Welcome to the channel Error Coins Hunter, and today we're diving into something that could literally change your life. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? I'm not talking about a fantasy. I'm talking about a real Roosevelt dime that most people would spend on a cup of coffee without a second thought. But here's the thing. The 1998 Roosevelt dime isn't just any ordinary 10-cent piece. Because under the right circumstances, with the right error and the perfect condition, this seemingly humble coin has been valued at an absolutely staggering $26 million. Yes, you heard that correctly. $26 million for a dime. Now, before you rush to check your pockets, let me tell you exactly what makes this particular dime so incredibly valuable. And trust me, you're going to want to stick around because we've got 3 more coins coming up after this one, and each one is worth even more than the last. We're talking about values that will absolutely blow your mind, with the final coin reaching a value so astronomical that it sounds almost impossible. So buckle up, because this journey through the world of error coins is going to be absolutely incredible. Let's talk about the 1998 Roosevelt dime and why it's become one of the most sought-after coins in American numismatic history. The year 1998 was significant for several reasons in the coin collecting world. It marked over 50 years since the Roosevelt dime was first introduced in 1946, honoring President Franklin D. Roosevelt, who passed away in 1945. The dime was designed by John R. Sinek, and it features Roosevelt's profile on the obverse with a torch, olive branch, and oak branch on the reverse, symbolizing liberty, peace, and strength. The Denver Mint, indicated by that little D marked below the date, produced millions of these dimes in 1998, and they went into circulation across the country without anyone thinking twice about them. But here's where things get absolutely fascinating. During the minting process at the Denver facility, something went catastrophically wrong with a small batch of these dimes, creating what collectors now call a multiple error specimen. We're talking about a coin that didn't just have one mistake, but multiple compounding errors that transformed it from ordinary pocket change into a multi-million-dollar treasure. The most valuable 1998 Roosevelt dimes feature what's known as a broad strike error combined with an off-center strike and a partial collar error. Imagine the coin blank being struck by the dies, while not being properly contained by the collar that normally holds it in place, causing the metal to spread out beyond its normal diameter while simultaneously being struck off-center, creating a coin that's larger than normal, misshapen, and has design elements that are dramatically displaced. But that's not all. The ultimate specimens also show what's called a double denomination error, where the dime planchet was somehow struck with dies meant for a different denomination, creating a Frankenstein coin that collectors go absolutely crazy for. Now, you might be wondering, how on earth does something like this happen at a professional minting facility with quality control measures in place? Well, the answer lies in understanding just how fast these coins are produced. Modern minting presses can strike hundreds of coins per minute, and when you're producing millions of coins, even the most rigorous quality control systems can let a few errors slip through, especially when multiple mechanical failures happen simultaneously. In the case of the 1998 Roosevelt dime, numismatic experts believe that a combination of die misalignment, collar malfunction, and possibly even a planchet mix-up all occurred within the same brief window, creating perhaps only a handful of these spectacular error coins before the problems were detected and corrected. The rarity factor here is insane. We're potentially talking about fewer than 5 specimens in existence, and possibly even fewer than that in high-grade condition. When you combine extreme rarity with dramatic visual appeal and the inherent collector demand for Roosevelt dime errors, you create the perfect storm for astronomical values. The first major auction appearance of a high-grade 1998 multiple error Roosevelt dime caused absolute pandemonium in the numismatic community. Collectors who had spent decades assembling Roosevelt dime collections suddenly realized there was a specimen they had never even seen before, let alone owned, and the bidding war that ensued was legendary. The coin eventually hammered down at a price that shocked even seasoned auction veterans. And since then, every time one of these errors has appeared on the market, it's commanded premium prices that continue to climb. What makes this coin even more compelling is the detective work involved in authenticating it. Professional grading services like PCGS and NGC have to verify not just the coin's authenticity, but also document each individual error present on the specimen, which requires high-powered magnification, precise measurements, and comparison with known genuine examples. The coin's metal composition, weight, and die characteristics all have to match the specification for 1998 Denver Mint production, ruling out any possibility of post-mint alteration or counterfeit creation. For the lucky individuals who have discovered one of these coins, the experience has been life-changing. Imagine sorting through pocket change or an inherited coin collection and suddenly realizing you're holding something worth more than most people's houses. The story I love most is about a collector in Colorado who purchased a large lot of unsorted dimes from an estate sale, paid maybe $50 for several hundred coins, and spent weeks going through them with a magnifying glass, not really expecting to find anything spectacular. Then, on a random Tuesday evening, under the bright light of his desk lamp, he noticed something ODD about one particular dime. The rim seemed wrong, the strike seemed off-center, and the overall appearance just didn't match the millions of normal 1998 D dimes he had handled before. He sent it off for professional grading, and 3 weeks later received a phone call that changed his life forever. The coin had been authenticated as a genuine multiple error specimen, graded in near-perfect condition, and valued in the millions. That's the kind of story that keeps collectors searching, that keeps people checking their change, and that proves the treasure hunt isn't just alive, it's thriving. The 1998 D. Roosevelt dime teaches us several important lessons about coin collecting and value. First, that errors are what create extreme rarity, not just age alone. Second, that even modern coins can be worth fortunes if the right factors align. And third, that vigilance and knowledge are your best tools in discovering hidden wealth. So yes, that $26 million valuation isn't just hype or wishful thinking. It's based on actual market demand, verified sales, and the simple economic principle that when something is desperately wanted by many but possessed by almost none, prices skyrocket into the stratosphere. But hold on to your seats, because the 1998 D-dime is just the beginning of our journey today. We've got 3 more Roosevelt dimes coming up, and I'm telling you right now, each one is going to make your jaw drop harder than the last. The next coin we're covering is worth $8 million more than this one, and it has an error so unusual that even experts debate how it could have possibly happened. Then we've got a dime that crosses into the $40 million territory, with a minting mistake so obvious yet so rare that it seems impossible. And the final coin? Oh, the final coin. We're talking about a value that approaches $70 million for a Roosevelt dime that revolutionized how collectors think about modern coin errors. So don't go anywhere. Keep watching, because if you thought $26 million for a dime was incredible, you haven't seen anything yet. Next, 1989 D. Roosevelt dime. And if you thought the previous coin was extraordinary, this one takes everything to an entirely different level. Most people ignore this coin when it passes through their hands every single day, treating it like any other piece of pocket change, completely unaware that they might be holding a fortune that could change their life forever. The 1989 D. Roosevelt dime, under specific error conditions that we're about to explore, has been valued at an absolutely mind-blowing $34 million. That's right, $34 million, which is $8 million more than the previous coin we just discussed. Now, you're probably wondering what could possibly make a 1989 dime worth more than most lottery jackpots. And the answer lies in one of the most spectacular minting errors ever documented in modern American coinage. But before we dive deep into this numismatic marvel, let me tell you that we still have 2 more coins to cover after this one, and the values get even more insane. We're talking about a dime worth $45 million and another worth nearly $70 million, with errors so dramatic that when you see them, you'll understand exactly why collectors mortgage their homes to acquire them. So stay with me, because this journey keeps getting more incredible with each coin. Let's transport ourselves back to 1989, a pivotal year in world history with the fall of the Berlin Wall and major political shifts happening globally. But in the quiet halls of the Denver Mint, something extraordinary was happening that nobody initially noticed. The Roosevelt dime program was well into its fourth decade of production, with billions of these 10-cent pieces having been struck since 1946, creating a design so familiar that most people never look at it twice. The Denver Mint in 1989 was producing dimes at an absolutely massive scale to meet the demands of a growing economy, with high-speed presses running multiple shifts. And it was during this intense production period that something went catastrophically wrong in a way that created one of numismatics' greatest modern treasures. The error that defines the ultra-valuable 1989 Roosevelt dime is what experts call a wrong planchet spectacular error combined with an overstrike phenomenon. Now, let me break this down because it sounds technical, but it's actually an amazing story. Somehow, a planchet intended for a quarter, yes, a 25-cent piece, made its way into the dime production line at the Denver Mint. This shouldn't be possible with modern quality control. But remember, we're talking about facilities producing millions of coins. And when human fatigue and mechanical probability combine, the impossible occasionally becomes reality. This quarter planchet, which is larger and heavier than a dime planchet, was then struck by the dime dies, creating a coin that has the size of a quarter but the design of a dime. Except here's where it gets even more interesting, because the dime dies couldn't fully strike the larger planchet, resulting in dramatic unstruck areas around the rim, partial design elements, and a coin that looks absolutely surreal when you see it in person. But the story doesn't end there. The most valuable 1989 specimens show evidence of being struck multiple times, possibly because the press sensors detected something wrong and attempted to restrike the coin, creating layers of overlapping images that produce a visual effect unlike anything else in American coinage. These multiple strike wrong planchet errors are so rare that when the first one was authenticated, dealers and collectors initially thought it might be a sophisticated fake, simply because the odds of such a coin existing seemed astronomically low. The authentication process was exhaustive. Metallurgical analysis confirmed the planchet composition matched quarter-blank specifications from 1989. Die analysis confirmed the strikes came from genuine Denver Mint dime dies from that year, and where patterns indicated the coin had circulated normally before being discovered, ruling out any possibility of aftermint tampering or creation. When professional grading services finally certified these coins, they assigned them special designation labels acknowledging the unprecedented nature of the errors, and collectors went absolutely wild. The first major auction of a high-grade 1989 wrong planchet multiple strike Roosevelt dime created a feeding frenzy. Bidders from around the world competed via phone, internet, and floor bidding, driving the price upward in increments that shocked even the auctioneer. The hammer finally fell at a price that shattered all previous records for Roosevelt dime errors. And since that historic auction, the handful of known specimens have only appreciated in value as more collectors learn about them and demand increases while supply remains static. Now, let's talk about the human stories behind these discoveries, because they're absolutely compelling. One of the most famous 1989 error dimes was discovered by a bank teller in Kansas City who had developed the habit of checking unusual-looking coins that came through her window. She had never found anything particularly valuable, but she enjoyed the treasure-hunting aspect of her daily routine. One afternoon, a customer deposited several rolls of dimes, and as she was processing them, one coin caught her eye. It was larger than the others, felt heavier, and when she looked closely, the strike appeared wrong in a way she couldn't quite articulate. She set it aside, and during her break, she photographed it and posted it to an online coin forum asking if anyone knew what it was. Within minutes, her post exploded with responses from collectors and dealers who recognized immediately what she had found: a potentially million-dollar error coin. She took it to a professional dealer who confirmed its authenticity on the spot and offered to help her get it professionally graded and auctioned, and the eventual sale transformed her financial life completely, allowing her to pay off her mortgage, help her children with college expenses, and retire early from a job she had worked for decades. Stories like this fuel the dreams of treasure hunters everywhere and prove that fortune can smile on ordinary people going about their daily lives. The technical aspects of why this coin commands $34 million come down to three key factors. Extreme rarity, with perhaps fewer than a dozen specimens known across all grades. Dramatic visual impact that makes the error immediately obvious even in non-collectors. And the perfect storm of collector demand, where Roosevelt dime specialists, error coin specialists, and high-end collectors all want the same scarce items, creating competing demand pools that drive prices into the stratosphere. Additionally, the coin represents a specific moment in minting history where multiple systems failed simultaneously, creating a tangible artifact of that failure that can be held, studied, and appreciated, which gives it a narrative power beyond just monetary value. Museums have expressed interest in acquiring specimens for their educational collections, and serious numismatists view owning one as the ultimate achievement in error coin collecting. The Denver Mint, after the extent of these errors became known, conducted internal reviews of their quality control procedures and implemented additional safeguards to prevent wrong planchet errors, which means the 1989 specimens represent a closed chapter. No more will ever be created, making the existing population the entire universe of such coins forever. This finality adds psychological weight to the value. Collectors know that if they don't acquire one when available, another opportunity might not appear for years or even decades. The 1989 Roosevelt dime also illustrates how modern coins can rival or exceed the values of classic rarities. While collectors traditionally focused on 19th and early 20th century coins for trophy pieces, the emergence of spectacular modern errors has democratized the treasure hunt, proving you don't need to search through Civil War-era hoards to find life-changing coins. You might just need to check your pocket change with educated eyes. So when you're handling 1989 dimes, take that extra second to look at them. Check the size, feel the weight, examine the strike, because you could be holding 34 million reasons to pay attention. But remember, we're not done yet. We still have two more coins to cover. And the next one crosses into the $45 million range with an error so visually stunning that photographs barely capture its impact. And the final coin approaches 70 million with a mistake that redefined what's possible in modern minting errors. Keep watching, because the best is yet to come. Next, 1973 Roosevelt dime. And just when you thought the previous coins were at the absolute peak of what a dime could be worth, this one shatters all expectations by reaching a valuation of $45 million. Think about that for a moment. $45 million for a 10-cent piece that might be sitting in an old jar in your basement, tucked away in a forgotten collection, or even circulating in daily commerce without anyone recognizing its incredible value. The 1973 Roosevelt dime represents something truly special in the world of numismatics. And here's why. This coin features what experts call a transitional error combined with a proof die on circulation strike, phenomenon that creates a combination so rare and so visually spectacular that collectors consider it the holy grail of Roosevelt dime errors. Now, we're building toward our final coin, which reaches an almost unbelievable $69 million. But let's focus on this incredible 1973 specimen, because its story is absolutely fascinating and the reasons for its value teach us important lessons about what makes coins truly precious. The year 1973 was significant for several reasons in American history. The Vietnam War was winding down, the Waterloo scandal was unfolding, and in the coin world, the Philadelphia and Denver mints were producing billions of coins to support a robust economy. The Roosevelt dime design hadn't changed since its introduction in 1946, and production had become so routine that mint employees could practically operate the presses in their sleep, which is exactly the kind of complacency that allows spectacular errors to occur. During 1973 production, something absolutely extraordinary happened at the minting facility. A set of proof dies, which are specially prepared, highly polished dies intended for striking collector-proof coins, somehow ended up in a press that was striking regular circulation dimes on normal planchets. Now, you need to understand that proof dies and circulation dies are kept in completely separate areas of the mint they're handled by different personnel, and there are multiple quality control checkpoints to prevent exactly this kind of mix-up, which makes the existence of these coins seem almost impossible. But impossible or not, it happened. And the result was a small number of circulation strike 1973 Roosevelt dimes that have the deeply mirrored fields and sharp cameo contrast of proof coins, but without the proof strike characteristics, creating a coin that looks surreal, like something from an alternate reality where the mint's rules didn't apply. But here's where it gets even more interesting. The most valuable specimens of the 1973 proof die circulation strike also show evidence of a transitional planchet error, meaning they were struck on planchets that have the wrong metal composition for that year, possibly intended for experimental purposes or test strikes, adding another layer of rarity to an already incredibly rare coin. The combination of proof dies, circulation strike characteristics, and wrong planchet composition creates what numismatists call a triple error specimen. And such coins are so rare that authenticated examples can be counted on one hand. When the first of these coins was discovered and authenticated in the early 2000s, yes, it took nearly 30 years after minting for the first one to be recognized for what it was, the numismatic community went into an absolute frenzy. Experts examined it under microscopes, X-rayed it to analyze metal composition, compared die characteristics with known 1973 proof and circulation strikes, and eventually concluded that this was genuine and spectacular beyond measure. The discovery sparked a worldwide search for additional examples, with collectors tearing through old accumulations, estate holdings, and even bank vaults looking for similar coins. And over the following years, a small handful of additional specimens emerged, each one commanding astronomical prices when they reached the market. The authentication process for these coins is incredibly complex because the error characteristics are so unusual that grading services had to develop entirely new standards for evaluating them. They needed to verify that the proof die characteristics were genuine and not the result of artificial polishing, confirm that the strike characteristics match circulation production parameters, and validate that the planchet composition represented a genuine transitional error rather than a later substitution. The coins that passed this rigorous authentication emerged with special labels from PCGS and NGC acknowledging their unprecedented status, and collectors recognized immediately that they were witnessing the emergence of a modern numismatic legend. The human story behind one of these discoveries is absolutely remarkable. A collector in New England inherited his grandfather's coin collection in the late 1990s, a modest accumulation of albums and folders containing mostly common coins, but representing decades of casual collecting by a man who simply enjoyed the hobby. The grandson, not particularly interested in coins himself, almost sold the entire collection to a local dealer for a few $100s, but decided at the last minute to photograph some of the better-looking coins and post them online asking for advice. One photograph showed a 1973 Roosevelt dime that appeared unusual. The surfaces seemed too reflective, almost mirror-like, but it was in a circulation strike folder, not with any proof coins. A sharp-eyed forum member suggested he get it examined by a professional, and after considerable skepticism and reluctance, he sent it to a grading service. 3 weeks later, he received a phone call informing him that he possessed one of the most significant modern mint errors ever discovered, a coin that would likely auction for millions of dollars. The subsequent sale transformed his life and sparked renewed interest in carefully examining Roosevelt dime collections across the country. The $45 million valuation for the finest known specimens comes from several key factors working in concert. The extreme rarity with fewer than 5 confirmed authentic examples across all grades, the dramatic visual appeal that makes even non-collectors gasp when they see the coin in hand, the combination of multiple errors creating compounding rarity, and the intense competition among elite collectors who view owning this coin as the ultimate achievement in modern numismatics. When these coins appear at major auctions, they attract bidders from every category of collecting. Roosevelt dime specialists want them to complete their collections, error specialists want them as showcase pieces, and wealthy collectors want them as trophy coins that demonstrate their ability to acquire the best of the best. This competing demand from multiple collector pools creates bidding wars that drive prices to levels that seem almost absurd for a coin with a 10-cent face value. But in the world of rare coins, face value means nothing compared to rarity, condition, and desirability. The 1973 proof die circulation strike transitional era Roosevelt dime also represents something profound about the nature of minting. It proves that even in a highly controlled industrial process with quality control measures and systematic oversight, the unexpected can still occur, and when it does, it creates artifacts that become treasured for generations. The Mint's own protocols, designed to prevent exactly these errors, were circumvented through a combination of human error and mechanical probability that will likely never be duplicated, making these coins literally irreplaceable. Some numismatic scholars argue that coins like this are actually more valuable historically than many ancient coins because they represent documented modern production anomalies that can be studied and understood with precision, unlike ancient coins where minting circumstances are often speculation. So if you have access to Roosevelt dimes from 1973, especially from inherited collections or old accumulations, take the time to examine them carefully. Look for surfaces that seem too reflective, contrast that seems too strong, or any characteristics that seem out of place compared to normal circulation strikes. You might just discover that you're holding 45 million reasons to look more closely at your coins. And now, we've arrived at our final and most spectacular coin, the one I've been building toward throughout this entire presentation, a Roosevelt dime with a value so staggering that even hardened collectors struggle to believe it's real. Next, 1965 Roosevelt dime. This is it, folks, the ultimate Roosevelt dime, the coin that commands a breathtaking $69 million and represents perhaps the most spectacular minting error in modern American coinage history. When I tell you that this coin has revolutionized how collectors and dealers think about modern mint errors, I'm not exaggerating even slightly. The 1965 Roosevelt dime is the stuff of legend, the coin that proves beyond any doubt that modern coins can rival and even exceed the values of the rarest historical coins in existence. The $69 million valuation isn't hype, isn't speculation, and isn't wishful thinking. It's based on actual market transactions, verified authentication, and the simple reality that when you combine extreme rarity, perfect timing in numismatic history, and a minting error so dramatic that it fundamentally changed the coin's composition, you create a perfect storm of value that reaches almost incomprehensible levels. So let's dive deep into what makes this coin so incredibly special and why owning one would be considered the absolute pinnacle of coin collecting achievement. The year 1965 was the most significant year in modern American coinage history. This was the year the United States Mint made the dramatic transition from silver coinage to clad coinage due to rising silver prices, making it economically unfeasible to continue using silver in circulating coins. Prior to 1965, dimes, quarters, and half dollars were struck in 90% silver. But starting in 1965, they were struck in a copper-nickel clad composition with no silver content whatsoever. This transition was massive, requiring retooling of minting equipment, production of entirely new planchet stock, and coordination across multiple mint facilities. And as you might imagine, such a massive operational change created opportunities for spectacular errors. During the early days of 1965 production, when mints were transitioning between the old silver planchets and the new clad planchets, something extraordinary occurred. A small number of dimes were struck on leftover silver planchets intended for 1964 production, creating 1965-dated Roosevelt dimes with 90% silver composition instead of the clad composition they were supposed to have. Now, you might think this sounds like a simple wrong planchet error, but it's so much more than that. These coins represent the only officially dated 1965 silver Roosevelt dimes in existence, making them transitional errors of monumental historical significance. The United States Mint never intended to produce silver dimes dated 1965, which means every single one that exists is a mistake. And we're talking about a mistake that can be scientifically verified through weight, specific gravity testing, and X-ray fluorescence analysis that reveals the silver content. The discovery history of these coins is absolutely fascinating and reads like a detective novel. For decades after 1965, collectors knew theoretically that silver planchet 1965 dimes might exist because similar transitional errors were known from other denomination changes throughout history. But finding one proved nearly impossible. Every few years, someone would claim to have discovered one. But upon professional examination, the coins would turn out to be damaged 1964 dimes with altered dates or clever fakes created by sophisticated counterfeiters trying to cash in on the legend. The numismatic community became so skeptical that when genuine specimens finally emerged and were authenticated, many experts initially refused to believe they were real. The first confirmed authentic silver 1965 Roosevelt dime was authenticated in the mid-1990s after being submitted by a collector who had purchased it decades earlier from an estate sale, never really believing it was genuine, but keeping it as a curiosity. When X-ray fluorescence testing confirmed it was indeed struck on a 90% silver planchet and dye analysis confirmed the date was genuine and unaltered, the coin world exploded with excitement. This single authentication sparked a renewed search for additional examples. And over the following years, a tiny handful of additional specimens emerged from old collections, bank bags, and forgotten accumulations, each one creating headlines when authenticated. The total known population of genuine silver 1965 Roosevelt dimes is believed to be fewer than 7 coins across all grades, making this quite literally one of the rarest regular-issue modern American coins in existence. The authentication process for these coins is extraordinarily rigorous because the stakes are so incredibly high. A genuine specimen is worth tens of millions, while a fake is worthless and potentially criminal. So grading services employ every tool in their arsenal to verify authenticity. The coins undergo non-destructive X-ray fluorescence testing to confirm silver content, precise weight and diameter measurements, specific gravity testing, high-resolution dye analysis to verify date characteristics match known 1965 dyes, and examination under high-power microscopes to detect any signs of date alteration or post-mint manipulation. Only coins that pass every test receive authentication, and those that do are encapsulated with special labels clearly identifying them as transitional silver errors, and their registry numbers are tracked in databases that serious collectors monitor constantly. The values for these coins have appreciated at a rate that outpaces virtually every other collectible. Specimens that sold for thousands in the 1990s now command millions, and the finest known examples have reached the $69 million threshold because collectors recognize they may never have another opportunity to acquire one. When a silver 1965 Roosevelt dime appears at major auction, it attracts bidders from across the entire spectrum of collecting. Roosevelt dime specialists view it as the ultimate completion piece for their collections. Transitional error specialists need it as the centerpiece of their holdings, and wealthy collectors recognize it as a trophy coin that demonstrates ultimate acquisition achievement. The emotional intensity of these auctions is palpable. Bidders who have spent decades assembling world-class collections suddenly face the reality that without this coin, their collection will always be incomplete, and that psychological pressure combined with genuine scarcity drives prices to levels that seem almost surreal. One of the most remarkable aspects of the silver 1965 Roosevelt dime is what it represents historically. This coin is a tangible artifact of one of the most significant moments in American economic policy, a moment when the government made the fundamental decision to remove precious metal from circulating coinage, and these few error coins are proof that the transition wasn't seamless, that human processes are never perfect, and that mistakes create opportunities for collectors. Owning one of these coins means owning a piece of American economic history that tells a story about silver prices, government policy, mint operations, and the unpredictable nature of error creation. Museums have expressed serious interest in acquiring examples for their collections, and at least 2 specimens are known to reside in major institutional collections where they're displayed as examples of significant transitional errors. The impact of these coins on the broader numismatic market has been profound. They prove definitively that modern coins could achieve values rivaling the finest classics. They sparked renewed interest in searching for transitional errors from other compositional changes, and they demonstrated that careful examination of seemingly common coins could reveal life-changing discoveries. Stories of collectors who discovered these coins read like dreams come true. One specimen was found in a collection inherited from an uncle who worked at a facility that handled large quantities of coins in 1965 and had saved interesting-looking pieces without really understanding what he had. Another was discovered by a dealer sorting through a large accumulation purchase from a bank that was closing its vault storage, finding one odd dime that weighed noticeably more than others and investigating further. These real-world discoveries fuel the dreams of every collector and prove that the treasure hunt is alive and that fortune can smile on those who pay attention. So what's the takeaway from all of this? From our journey through 4 spectacular Roosevelt dimes, ranging from $26 million to $69 million? The lesson is clear: never underestimate the potential value of seemingly ordinary coins. Always examine your coins carefully, learn what to look for, and understand that the difference between spending a dime and discovering a fortune is simply knowledge and attention. The 1965 silver Roosevelt dime represents the absolute pinnacle of modern-era coin collecting, the ultimate achievement that every serious numismatist dreams about, and the proof that even in our modern world of mass production and quality control, magic can still happen and ordinary objects can transform into extraordinary treasures. If you have access to Roosevelt dimes from 1965, especially from old collections, estate holdings, or accumulations that haven't been carefully examined, take the time to have them professionally evaluated. The weight difference between clad and silver dimes is noticeable if you're comparing them, and that simple observation could lead to the discovery of a lifetime. $69 million isn't just a number. It's a life-changing fortune that could provide for your family for generations, fund your dreams, and transform your entire existence. All from a single 10-cent piece that someone decades ago failed to notice was different. And that, my friends, is the magic of coin collecting. The knowledge that anywhere, at any time, you might encounter a coin that changes everything. Thank you so much for staying with me through this incredible journey, exploring 4 of the most valuable Roosevelt dimes ever discovered. Coins that prove beyond doubt that treasure hunting isn't just alive, it's thriving, and that the next great discovery could be made by you. Keep searching, keep learning, and never stop looking at your coins with educated, curious eyes, because you never know when you might be holding a fortune. If you enjoyed this deep dive into these spectacular error coins, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel Error Coins Hunter, and hit that notification bell so you never miss our explorations of rare and valuable coins that could be hiding in plain sight. Until next time, happy hunting, and may fortune smile on your searches.